What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's CJ. This is Out of Bounds DFS, and in today's video, we're going to do things a little bit different. Of course, NBA is still on a break, and we're going to talk NHL single stat in its place. Last few days, I've been off of YouTube. I've been on a break as well. It's been nice to take a step back, put everything down, and kind of recharge the batteries. And I've been dabbling in some other sports over on PrizePicks. Everything from PGA to NHL to CSGO, League of Legends, you name it. I've been trying it out, and I've had some success here recently with NHL single stats. So that's what we're going to focus on today, and hopefully we can help you have more success in this format as well. If this is your first time to Out of Bounds DFS, welcome. On this channel, we talk all things single stat, daily fantasy sports, prize picks, monkey knife fight, you name it, we're doing it. So if that's something that you're into, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos every single day. So without further ado, let's start talking about some NHL single stats. So if you're unfamiliar with NHL or their single stat format, well, they focus in terms of skaters on shots on goal. So that's the amount of shots that any of these players on the board today will take on the opposing team's goal. So that's what we're going to be looking at. That's what we're going to be focusing on. So as you can see on the PrizePicks board right now, tons and tons of players that they have posted here. We're not going to obviously go through every team, every player. That would just be way too long of a video, but we are going to talk about some of the guys that are more highly projected, the ones that are up there at like 3, 3.5, 4, or even more if there are any in terms of shots on goal projections. So without further ado, let's start getting into it. And the first guy that's jumping off the page to me is David Pasternak. Hope I'm pronouncing your name right, David. Boston Bruins taking on the New York Islanders tonight at 7 p.m. His projection is 3.5 shots on goal. So the first thing that I like to do is go over to ESPN or whoever your favorite stat site is, and then I start by looking at this shots per game column. Now this is basically going to tell us how many shots per game that the Boston Bruins take on goal on any given night. So this is a game average here of how many shots as a team that the Boston Bruins are going to be taking. So we go down the list here. We don't have to go very far. The Boston Bruins rank 5th in the entire NHL, attempting 31.5 shots on goal on any given night. So I like to start there. That's a healthy amount of shots, as you can see, one of the highest ranking teams. And then the next thing I do is look at their opponent, which is the New York Islanders. And I come over to this next column here with shots against per game, which means how many shots are they allowing on goal per game on average. And we go down here and we find the Islanders, and you can see that they are one of the more stingier teams. They're not allowing a ton of shots on goal. 27.4. So you have one of the strongest teams in terms of the amount of shots on goal they get as a team versus one of the strongest teams in terms of limiting shots on goal. So something's got to give here in this matchup. So if we head over to the next site that I like to reference, which is hockeyreference.com, and we look for Mr. Pasternak. There he is. He pops right up. We can look at his last 5 games, and you can see, guys, that in his last 5, he's got an over with 4 shots on goal, an over with 4, under with 1 and 2, and then a big over here with 10 shots on goal. So in his last 5, he's went over 3 times, under twice. Now, in his last 5, he does not have a matchup against the Islanders, but what we can do is go to his complete game log from here, and that will give us an even better picture of how Pasternak, if I'm saying that right, is doing versus the New York Islanders. So if we head on down the list here, you can see that he does have a previous matchup against the Islanders back on February 13th. In that game, he attempted just 1 shot on goal. Not very good for an over, so that would be an under. Keep going down the list here. He's got another game here against the Islanders where he puts up 5 shots against them in that one. So one game where he has 1 shot on goal, one game where he has 5. So he went over in that particular matchup. So now that we have that information, the last thing I like to do is come over to RotoWire. Now, if you click RotoWire, go to betting, click NHL, obviously. Then you can look at the player props that they have posted on there. Of course, we want to be looking at the shots player prop because we're talking single shot here. Single stat shots on goal here on PrizePicks. So we head over to there and we look for David Pasternak, and you don't have to look very far or very hard. And there he is. So you've got DraftKings Sportsbook posted on here, and you've got BetMGM's Sportsbook posted on here. So if we look at the 3.5, he is at 3.5 both on DraftKings and on BetMGM. So this makes this an apples to apples to apples comparison versus PrizePicks, or a 1-to-1-to-1 comparison versus PrizePicks. Now you can see that the action is on the over 3.5 for Pasternak on DraftKings, and then over on BetMGM, not a lot of action there, but they do have a over as the way to go on Pasternak there. So when you take all things into consideration here, it looks like the over may be the way to go here for David Pasternak. That's how I would be leaning in this situation. So that's the first guy we have in the bag. Now let's move on down here and see if there's anybody else that's jumping off, and boom, we've got Alex Ovechkin, who is projected at 4 shots on goal tonight. Now, the Washington Capitals are taking on the New Jersey Devils. This game starts at 7 p.m. over on PrizePicks. So we rinse and we repeat. We start again with shots 4 per game. This is the amount of shots on goal that the Washington Capitals take as a team on a per game basis. So we head on down and we find the Capitals in the list of teams here. They're all the way down here, tied for 22nd. They attempt about 29 shots on goal per game as a team. So keep that in mind, 29. Now we head on over here to this next column, shots against per game, and we're looking for the New Jersey Devils. We want to see how many shots per game that opposing teams take on the New Jersey Devils goal. So we head on down the line here and we find New Jersey at 30.9. So they're at almost 31 shots on goal allowed per game. So this would be a situation where we would call it a plus matchup in terms of the amount of shots on goal that we can expect. There should be a little bit more for the Washington Capitals in this situation. So the next thing we do is we head back over to Hockey Reference and we look for Ovechkin. And if I could type with this big microphone in my face, that would be helpful. There he is. All right, so we get on to his last 5 games, and we can see that Ovechkin has an under, an over, an over, an over, and another slight under there. So in his last 5 games, he's went under 2 times and over 3 times. Now, out of these 5 game logs here that we have recently, 2 of his last 2 games were against the New Jersey Devils when he put up 2 shots and 6 shots. So he's got 1 over, 1 under versus the New Jersey Devils. So we're going to need to look into this a little bit more here, and we're going to look at his complete game log, and we're going to go back and see if he's got any other matchups versus New Jersey to talk about. And he does. Back on February 21st against New Jersey, he puts up 2 shots on goal, which would be an under based on today's projection of the 4 shots on goal. So as you can see, he's got 3 games against New Jersey, 2 where he's went under, 1 where he's went over today's projection of 4. So something to keep in mind there. Now the next move is obviously going back to RotoWire, taking a look at the sports books and seeing how people are betting on this single stat prop for Alex Ovechkin. So they've got him at 4.5 shots on goal on DraftKings Sportsbook, and they've got him at 3.5 shots on goal over on BetMGM Sportsbook. So you can see the PrizePicks projection of 4 puts him right smack in the middle of those two. So this 4.5, that basically means that people are betting the under. They think that Ovechkin is going to shoot under 4.5 shots on goal tonight, which would mean that he has to shoot at least like 4 or less shots on goal. And then the 3.5, people are betting the over there. So people think on BetMGM that he's going to shoot at least 4 shots on goal or more. So this becomes a very confusing, very tricky situation. They've got him right here at 4. I think I would probably lean toward maybe taking the over here just due to the fact that the Capitals should get a couple more shots, few more shots than they typically do versus the New Jersey Devils. And I know Ovechkin's success rate is not very good in terms of going over his projection of 4 today, as he's just gone over once in his last 3 meetings with New Jersey. But this is one of the better players in the league, so I'm kind of thinking that he does get some shots off tonight. But we'll go on and move to the next skater, and down the list we go. And let's talk Austin Matthews, Toronto Maple Leafs, as they take on the Winnipeg Jets. This game starts at 7 p.m. Austin Matthews projected for 4 shots on goal. So let's go back over to ESPN, and we start with how many shots the Toronto Maple Leafs get as a team on a per game basis. Well, they're attempting 30.2 shots on goal as a team, so not a bad number there. That puts them as the 13th ranked team. And of course, they're taking on the Winnipeg Jets, so let's take a look and see how many the Jets are giving up. All right, so the Jets allowing 31.5 shots on goal to opposing teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs. So this is another situation where it's a little bit of a plus matchup here for Toronto. There should be a couple more shots than maybe they typically get on a per game basis. So the next move is heading back to Hockey Reference, and we're going to look for Austin Matthews. And there he is. Now we scroll down and we look at his last 5 games, and you can see that he's got 1 game where he's went under, 1 game where he's pushed, landing exactly on the projection of 4 tonight. Then he's got a game where he's went over, there's another over, and another game where he's went under. So his 5-game recap is pretty crazy. He's got 2 games where he's went over, 2 games where he's went under, and 1 game where he was a push. So let's dig into his complete game log and see if he's got any previous matchups against this Winnipeg Jets team. And we move on down the list here, and you can see back on January 18th, which was a while back now, but he did take 5 shots on goal in that game. So that's a good number to look at. And guys, that's his only previous game to date against the Winnipeg Jets. So he had 5 in that one. So the fact that he's got 2 overs, 1 push, and the fact that against Winnipeg the last time they met, that he attempted over the 4 shots on goal projection tonight with 5, I'm kind of leaning toward the over myself here on Austin Matthews. But let's see if we can figure things out here a little bit further. Now we head on over to RotoWire, and as you can see, they've got him at 3.5 shots on DraftKings Sportsbook. They got him at 4.5 shots on BetMGM Sportsbook. So this is another situation, classic situation, where PrizePicks takes the tricky in-between projection of 4 shots on goal and leaves it up to us to figure things out. So the 3.5 on DraftKings, people are strongly betting the over on that, which means they expect him to shoot at least 4 shots on goal or more. So could be a situation where he ends up pushing again, according to bettors, maybe. And then over on BetMGM, he's at 4.5 shots on goal. So if we take the under like people are betting, that would mean he's going to take 4 or less shots on goal. So classic situation here where PrizePicks doesn't make things easy on us, but I think I'm leaning toward the over on Austin Matthews in this particular game here. So that's the way that I'll be going. Now, if we move on down the line here, let's see who else jumps out. Let's talk Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, Chicago Blackhawks taking on the Dallas Stars tonight. That game starts at 8:30 p.m. We got Patrick Kane at 3.5 shots on goal. So we're going to do the old rinse and repeat and start here at shots per game for the Chicago Blackhawks. And as you can see, they're one of the better teams in terms of the amount of shots that they take on the opposing team's goalie in a given game. So 30.5 is their average. And of course, they're taking on Dallas. So we head on over to the next column and see how many shots per game that Dallas is allowing to their opposition. We move on down the list here, and you can see that Dallas is at 29th. They're one of the stingiest teams in the league, not allowing a ton of shots on goal, just 26.8. So under 27 shots on goal. So this would be what I would call kind of a negative game situation here for Patrick Kane and the rest of the Chicago Hawks black team, or Chicago Blackhawks team. Yeah, I don't know what I said there. But anyway, Chicago Blackhawks team. So maybe not as many shots as they typically get. We'll see. Now, the next thing is hockey reference. So we head on over here and we type in Kane, Patrick Kane, boom. And we look at his last 5 games here, and you can see what his game logs look like. So in his last one, which was against Detroit, 5 shots on goal would put him over 3.5. Then he's got 3, which puts him slightly under. 5 puts him over. 6 puts him over. And 1 puts him under. So he's got 3 overs, 2 unders in his last 5. But none of these games came against the Dallas Stars. So we're going to take things a step further like we do. And we're going to look at previous game logs versus the Dallas Stars. So let's move down the line here and see if he's got any previous games against Dallas. And we'll hit the brakes right here because back on February 7th and February 9th, he did play against Dallas. Now, in both of those games, he went over 3.5 shots on goal. So if that's any indicator of things to come, well, then we would want to probably take the over on Patrick Kane. He had 5 shots on February 7th and then 4 shots on goal on February 9th. So both of those numbers good for the over. And that looks like the only 2 previous matchups he's got against the Dallas Stars. So we can move on and take a look at RotoWire and find those player props for DraftKings and BetMGM. So we move on down the line here. Boom, there's Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane is at 3.5 on DraftKings and 3.5 on BetMGM. So he's exactly the same on both of those sites as he is on PrizePicks, which helps us out here. So both sites like actually the under, or at least that's how people are putting down their money. They're putting the money on Patrick Kane shooting less than 3.5 shots on goal, meaning he'll shoot just 3 or less shots on goal today. So if you believe in that and believe in the rest of the stuff that we've looked at in the Patrick Kane game logs and the team stats and stuff like that, well, then maybe taking the under has some real merit. But you guys let me know, is there something that you do to get prepared for these NHL single slate games that maybe I'm missing? Something that I'm overlooking? Maybe there's a stat out there or a certain metric that you guys take into consideration when you're studying some of these NHL single stat picks. But let me know. I love to hear how you guys approach NHL on PrizePicks. That's going to do it for today's video. NBA should be back here soon, and I will be back on the NBA bandwagon talking that and more here on Out of Bounds DFS. But until then, this is CJ for Out of Bounds DFS. You guys, good luck tonight if you're playing on NHL, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.